Hello and welcome to the Ankura Construction Forum. This is our 12th and final monthly webinar of 2020. Today's webinar is titled 2020 Year in Review and Look Ahead to 2021. Now celebrating 10 years, the Ankura Construction Forum, together with our quarterly newsletter, Insight from Hindsight, was created to provide valuable insights and educational tools about construction risk, dispute avoidance, and dispute resolution on a broad spectrum of topics, including timely trends and topics of interest in the construction community. You may view all of the forum's previous webinars and past issues of Insight from Hindsight on our Ankura Construction Forum website at www.ankura.com. I would now like to introduce Steve Pitaniello, Senior Managing Director and leader of Ankura's Construction Disputes and Advisory Team. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you all for joining us for this, our 12th and final Ankura Construction Forum webinar of 2020. We are proud that we're able to deliver 11 different webinars and numerous written thought leadership pieces to you, our industry colleagues, and we thank you for your support throughout the entire year. In a year that was particularly challenging for all of us due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Ankura team still enjoyed developing our thought leadership and delivering our insights, and we hope that you enjoyed what we offer. Today, in this abbreviated webinar format, we're going to take a look back at our 2020 webinars and also introduce some of our webinar topics that are on tap and scheduled for 2021. But before we do that, I want to pay tribute to our late friend and colleague, John Livengood, who passed away rather suddenly earlier this year. John was a valued member of our Construction Disputes and Advisory team, joining us in 2014. John grew up in Hillside, New Jersey, just outside of New York City. Throughout his life, one of his favorite places to spend his time was in a country home in the mountainous northwest corner of New Jersey, just off the Appalachian Trail. John earned a Bachelor of Architecture from Syracuse University and a Juris Doctor from the Catholic University of America. John was a recognized leader in the field of construction claims analysis. His service to the profession included contributing to the work of the Association for the Advancement of Cost Engineering, or AACE, for the past 2 decades, including a stint as AACE's president from 2016 to 2017. Earlier this year, he received AACE's O.T. Zimmerman Founders Award in recognition of his significant achievement and contribution, an honor he learned of just prior to his sudden passing. John also contributed to the ABA Forum on Construction Law, the Society of Construction Law, and the International Bar Association. Most recently, and as many of you already know, John led our efforts in the industry thought leadership as the leader of this, the Ankura Construction Forum. Outside of his technical expertise, John was a consummate teacher, mentor, and team builder. He has left a lasting impression on so many professionals in our industry that had the opportunity to work with him. John will be forever missed, but never forgotten. Now, as we turn the page on 2020, I'm excited to announce that our colleague Chris Smith has graciously accepted the position as the next leader of Ankura's Construction Forum. Chris, another of Ankura's senior construction consulting experts, is a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy. He holds a PhD in civil engineering and is a licensed professional engineer. His 25 years of diverse industry experience includes not only his construction consulting experience, but also military service as a U.S. Navy Seabee officer, where he was deployed both to the Far East and Latin America, as chief of construction for the U.S. National Institutes of Health, where he was awarded the NIH Director's Award for his role in the construction of Dr. Anthony Fauci's National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Disease Laboratory Complex in Maryland, and as a professor of construction engineering and management at both Mississippi State University and Texas State University. Again, a diverse career in the construction industry. Under Chris's guidance and leadership, we look forward to what the forum will offer our construction industry colleagues in 2021 and beyond. Now, I'd like to pass the proverbial torch and this webinar over to Chris Smith.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you to everyone who has joined us today. I thought that in order for the forum to continue to move forward, it would be important to look back on where it has been, at least in the last 12 months. Although it'd be wonderful to go back a full 10 years, which is in fact how long this forum has been in existence, I hope that this abbreviated webinar will stoke your interest in revisiting some of our webinars, foster ideas on new content and directions, and encourage the sharing of the forum's platform with your colleagues across the many industries represented here today. The Ankura Construction Forum takes multiple forms. The two most visible are our monthly webinars and our periodic newsletter, Insight from Hindsight, which I will speak to in the next slide. 2020 saw the forum host 11 webinars on a diverse set of topics across multiple practices and industries. The faces that you see on this slide are our webinar speakers, many of whom are from other firms and other areas of practice. Some of them appeared in our webinars on more than one occasion. With over 1,000 webinar participants, 2020 saw active participation from a diverse set of professionals and the launch of a very special relationship with the American Bar Association. 2020 also saw the continuation of scholarly work in our periodic newsletter, Insight from Hindsight. These 9 peer-reviewed articles with over 22 contributing authors address such topical themes as geopolitics, the brave new world of e-discovery, virtual trials, and new technologies in construction. In addition to Insight from Hindsight, the forum also published 12 additional thought leadership pieces in other mediums. Like our webinars, each issue of Insight from Hindsight may be found on the Ankura Construction Forum's web pages. John Livengood kicked off the new year with a truly memorable and futuristic take on the construction industry that also looked back some 200,000 years in what he dubbed the history of the future. Beyond simply describing the sustainable ideas and practices that seem to be the typical fodder for this topic, John's juxtaposition of utopian and dystopian perspectives were a refreshing angle to the discussion. Also, beyond giving substantive exposés of sustainable practices, new ideas in technology and management, John provided in the very least a tip of the cap to the darker side of quote unquote industry progress in the areas of virtual reality, sensory technology, the Internet of Things, drones, and a possible future with rising sea levels and recovery from natural disasters and man-made disasters. February saw an in-depth discussion of labor productivity from Ankura's Dr. Dave Halligan, who is currently co-authoring the Labor Productivity Manual for the American Society of Civil Engineers. Dave's coverage of this topic, from an in-depth treatment of the elegant measured mile methodology ushered into our industry by Dwight Zink in the mid-1980s, to the more brute force factor-based approaches such as the Mechanical Contractor Association of America's MCA factors, could be considered a must-view. Also, Dave's coverage of common mistakes and errors in the application of these and other labor productivity methodologies may prove especially helpful to those faced with these challenges. March saw our webinars branch out beyond Ankura's construction disputes and advisory practice, both in topic and in speakers. This webinar featured 5 different experts, and whether it was Michelle DiGratullo, leader of Ankura's Geopolitical Advisory Team in Washington, D.C., and seasoned U.S. military intelligence officer whose service included tours at the White House and the Defense Intelligence Agency, laying down a framework for her discussion of how geopolitical risks may obscure opportunities, or Ben Burley from our offices in Hong Kong describing foreign investment trends in construction, specifically why Japan, South Korea, and China's use of their own contractors, labor, and material supply chains in domestic construction reduce their risks associated with larger geopolitical upheavals. Or Sean Allen in the Middle East, speaking to the complexities of some of the most spectacular construction projects the world has ever seen, like Qatar's efforts to host the FIFA 2022 World Cup, a $6.5 billion endeavor that will see the construction of 7 new soccer stadiums, or the government of Saudi Arabia's $500 billion effort to construct Neom, City of the Future, that will be 33 times the area of New York City and equal in area to the country of Belgium. Or Matthew Finn from London addressing the effect of Great Britain's exit from the European Union on construction labor markets, newly emerging trade barriers, and the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic on this complex economic transition. Or finally, Steve Pitaniello describing market trends relative to infrastructure needs, citing at least 3 critical pillars to the discussion: the availability of infrastructure funding, the availability of craft labor, and supply chain concerns regarding the ability to obtain raw materials. The March 2020 discussion, intended purely as geopolitical, took on an added dimension with newly developing complications brought about by the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic at the time of the webinar. April saw Ankura's Harold Dorbin in Grant, Georgia of Ankura's Houston office provide a survey of new technologies in construction. Of note, they provide an even more detailed presentation of this topic in the forum's Insight from Hindsight, issue 32. Their work speaks to the linkage between our newsletter and our webinar series, as we were always searching for the opportunity to see a webinar grow into an Insight from Hindsight article, or vice versa. In May, the forum hosted Christopher Sweeney, an attorney in the Washington, D.C. offices of Cozen O'Connor, whose topic really attracted attention from those who follow the forum. His seemingly uncomfortable question and thoughtful discussion of this topic was accompanied by framing some of the most complicated delay scenarios facing forensic delay practitioners, not to mention the construction industry. Something that Chris could do given his professional roots in the field as an engineer and as a construction manager. Ankura's own Tom Thompson, a senior risk management professional in our Houston office, presented a topic very close to my heart in June of 2020, entitled Next Level Risk Analysis. His coverage of Monte Carlo analysis, where one simulates a game or a project in our industry's case, sets parameters, and then plays that game thousands of times, tabulating results in the hopes of drawing inferences on risk events, as well as his survey of various methodologies and software applications within this space, was surpassed only by his skill in making this complex topic understandable to our audience, and it is something that we plan to revisit in the coming months. The forum's July webinar included industry experts in the field of insurance matters. Joining Michael Squares and Ben Woolley was Patrick Moss, Assistant Vice President Account Executive from Lockton Companies, the largest independent insurance brokerage, and a deep dive into builders' risk insurance followed, with a focus on the quantification of complex claims through a variety of modeling techniques. One of the most exciting developments at Ankura in 2020 was the establishment of a relationship with the American Bar Association's section of litigation, Construction Litigation Committee. From this point forward, Ankura will be jointly hosting the Ankura Construction Forum webinar once per quarter with this American Bar Association committee, co-chaired by Ron Williams of Fox Rothschild. Ankura's Toshi Dazaki will be working with Ron to develop the content for each of these joint webinars, the first of which focused on cybersecurity risk in the construction industry. Karen Lang of MATE and Odia Kagan of Fox Rothschild joined Ankura's Mike Squares, an insurance claims expert, and Ankura Chef, a cybersecurity expert, as they explored cybersecurity threats faced by the construction industry and included several high-profile case studies in this high-risk area. September saw the forum assemble a diverse panel of industry professionals. Mark Boltman, Vice President and Principal of HGA, a national multidisciplinary design firm with over 850 design professionals, and Dan Myers, Vice President with large Midwest constructor Pepper Construction, joined Ankura professionals Sharon Carter and Joe Kuchars, who are both senior professionals in our Healthcare Real Estate Solutions Group, as they explored project delivery methods in commercial construction, focusing on the perceived risks and trade-offs associated with each delivery method. In October, the forum returned to one of its core services within the construction disputes and advisory practice, that of forensic schedule delay analysis. Patrick Kelly from Ankura's Washington, D.C. office took the forum through the myriad of forensic methodologies that are in practice as of this time and spoke to the future and his perspectives as one of the key contributors to the Association for the Advancement of Cost Engineering's recommended practice for forensic schedule analysis. November saw the forum return to our new relationship with the American Bar Association's section of litigation, Construction Litigation Committee. Sarah Beiser, partner with Fox Rothschild, and Michelle Lane, in-house counsel for MozTech, together with Ankura's Toshi Dazaki and Israel Almodovar, discussed experiences and lessons learned in virtual trials and other legal proceedings in this, our brave new world, also addressing the extent to which these virtual practices might continue. Thoughts and recent experiences from this brave new world of e-discovery, virtual trials and testimony is also addressed by Toshi and other senior Ankura thought leaders, including Peter Badala from San Francisco and Guy Elkington from Dubai, in Insight from Hindsight newsletter number 31, which was released in September. We hope that you will join us in 2021 for the continuation of our webinar series. We have come up with a few new topics, one of which will include a distinguished panel discussing the potential influence of recent geopolitical developments both within and beyond the construction industry. Like most of our webinars, our speakers will include thought leaders from beyond Ankura as they discuss post-inauguration perspectives of those closely involved with the transition of the US presidency. Also in 2021, we'll continue our co-branded webinars with the American Bar Association, hear from thought leaders on topics involving construction advisory services and trends and emerging practices in adjudication. We hope that you will join us. We hope that you've enjoyed our conversation. We've certainly enjoyed having you here. On behalf of over 1,500 Ankura professionals operating from over 37 offices worldwide, I'd like to wish you the happiest of holidays and look forward to seeing you again in the new year.